We live in a time where masculinity is shamed, and men don't know what it means to be a man. As a pastor and counselor, I've spent the better part of my life equipping and training others. My goal with this show is to translate my hard-earned experience into tools and tactics to help you become stronger as a man. This is the BraveCo podcast. I'm your host, Jason Vallotton. Welcome back, men, to the BraveCo podcast. This week, we are actually starting a new series, and I'm really excited about this series. Of course I am. I wouldn't do a series that I'm not excited about. But for a long time, one of my deepest passions has been to talk about addiction and overcoming addiction. And there's lots of reasons. I mean, so many of us men have either faced addiction or are battling addiction in our lives, whether that's alcohol, porn, a sexual addiction, overeating. I mean, our world is full of addiction. And so I want to bring in some top experts. I want to bring in some men from my life who have watched overcome addiction. I want to help to give you a framework and some really practical tools to help you either lead other men through it or to lead yourself through it. And you're going to hear some of my story in these podcasts and these conversations, but I really hope to bring you some of the best work and some of the best tools and help and stories that are available. And so I'm really, really excited for this. You know, I spent a large portion of my life battling addiction. It's unbelievable when I look back and I think about it, honestly. A large portion. And you guys know my story. Most of you know my story. If you don't, 10 years old, I was addicted to masturbation. I was coping with anxiety that I didn't know that I had. And that led to just full blown every day, just having to feed that addiction of masturbation. Pornography, I was introduced to at 14. That became this massive addiction from 14 to 16, of course, with the masturbation and porn. And it was so devastating. It was so trapping that every day, I hated being caught. I hated feeling stuck and trapped in it. I didn't know how to get out of it. And it was just one of the deepest, darkest holes that I've ever been in my life. And honestly, I'll probably share a bit about how I got out of it, but that was a whole season of having to work so hard to remember who I am and to get help. And different places in my life, I've been addicted to medication, not even in a where I was abusing it, but simply because I needed it to work through my nervous breakdown, and addicted for 8 years to clonazepam, and having to just work through weaning myself off of that and coming to a place where I can manage my own emotions on my own. And I'm just, again, when I look at my life, people ask me like, why don't you drink alcohol? Like, my whole life I've been battling addiction. The last thing I want to do is battle a alcohol addiction. Or why don't you smoke cigars? It's like, man, I just never trusted myself. I didn't want to start something that I had to manage. And I'm constantly managing things in my life, just like you are. And I've learned that addiction is something that we are all susceptible to. And also it's something in our lives that we can all be free and free of. And so, but there's a lot of myths that come with addiction. What is an actual addiction? And addiction is simply giving up the thing that you really want for the thing that you don't want. I really think that that's the simplest definition for addiction. If we think about it in your life, it's giving up the thing that you really want. I really want connection with my kids for the thing that you don't want. I really don't want to have alcohol, or I don't want porn. I really want a deep connection with my wife, but I have a porn problem. I really want to be open and honest and live a healthy, open, honest life and be known as a man of purity and wholeness, but I'm giving that up to feed my dysregulation, my pain of my past. I really want to be in shape and physically fit, but I overeat all the time to manage my emotions. And there's no shame for me. There's no shame. I'm not throwing shame at anyone. I'm just really helping us to clarify, like, what is addiction? And addiction, simply put, I'm giving up the thing that I want for the thing that I don't actually want. It's a really wild, when you stop and think about it, man, it's so wild. Some of the most driven people in the world are addicts, because an addict gives up everything in life in order to get the one thing that they can't live without. And you'll give up your home, you'll give up your comfort, you'll give up your dignity, you'll give up everything that you can lose just to have this one thing, whatever that one thing is for an addict. And so, all of us have felt the effects of addiction, whether it was your parents, a friend, or yourself. And there's a lot of misconception around it. We often think, if I could just get rid of the porn, if I could just get rid of the alcohol, if I could just stop eating the food. And, when we look at addiction, it's clearly a symptom of a much deeper problem. I want you to think about your addiction like this, or addiction like this. Addiction is your solution. It's your solution to a much deeper problem, right? If you're stuck in porn, porn is your solution. Porn isn't your problem. Porn is your solution to this deeper problem that you have. Why is that important? Because a lot of men will get free of porn and now they're using something else to solve this deeper problem in their life, or overeating, right? I remember watching the show The Greatest Loser, and basically it's a show, it's a TV series about who can lose, competitors that battle for who can lose the most weight. And on there was a woman named Shannon years and years and years ago, and she was massively overweight. She was 300 pounds or maybe even more. And she had really worked hard to lose weight. And there comes a portion in the show where you're watching all the competitors or the contestants, and week after week, month after month, you're following along on the journey, and they're kind of looking at each other's weight loss and where they're at. And then they go into this period where they go back home on their own for, 6 months. And then they have this big reveal. And at the reveal, they reveal who's the winner. And I remember following along on this journey. It was really cool. And I was like rooting for, certain contestants. And then we waited, and 6 months or 3 months or 6 months goes by, and all the contestants come out one by one, and everyone's clapping. Joe lost 100 pounds, and Mike lost 60 pounds, and Tammy lost, 110 pounds. And then all of a sudden, Shannon walks out, and you could literally hear the crowd go, oh. It's because when she walked out, she was bulimic, or anorexic. She was so skinny. You could see her arms, her bones. You could, like, all of a sudden the crowd went, oh my gosh. One, she's lost so much weight, but two, something's wrong. And then the next day in the news, there was like all this uproar about, is The Biggest Loser really helping people, or is it hurting people more than it's helping people? Like, should we be allowed to do this on the, like, what are the safeguards? And anyways, all that to say, like, what did she do? Well, she traded one addiction for another addiction. She traded eating as a comfort for now anorexia or throwing up, bulimia, and that's our lives. But when we look at addiction, we really need to go back and I want to take you guys to what's called the Rat Park experiment. There were, in the 60s, scientists started to look at what is addiction, what creates addiction, and especially drugs. They were looking at drug use. And so they they took these rats, and one by one they'd place a rat into a cage, and they'd put water in there, and they would put drug-laced water. So 2 water bottles, one just plain water and one drug-laced water. And every single time they did this study, the rat would get addicted to the drug-laced water, it would overdose, and it would die. That's literally what happened every single time. So, of course, scientists made this conclusion. Their conclusion was drugs have these like hooks in them. That's why they call it you get hooked. They have these hooks in them. And once you get on it, you get hooked and you can't get off of it. You will do it till you die. That was their conclusion. Well, in the 1970s, this guy named Alexander, Dr. Bruce Alexander, came around and he was looking at the studies from the 60s, and he looked at those and thought, I don't know that these are quite complete. And what he ended up doing is he built this rat park. So he put rats into a cage, a whole bunch of rats, not just one. He built wheels and threw balls in there, and the rats could play. They could entertain themselves. They could have sex. They could have relationships. And he put those same 2 water bottles in there, the pure water and the drug-laced water. This is very interesting because the rats would go and sometimes use the drug, like partake of the drink from the drug-laced water, but only recreationally. 0 of the rats died. None of the rats overdosed and died. All of them managed their life in a way in which they could still interact with all the other rats. They could still play. They could still have fun and have relationship. It's really interesting. After looking at that study, that really began to transform how scientists begin to understand addiction, drugs, drug use. And the conclusion that they made is addiction has more to do with the cage that you're in than the substance you're taking. Addiction has more to do with the cage that you're in than the substance that you're taking. See, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection. What they started realizing is that addiction didn't have to do much with the drug. It had so much to do with the life that you're living, what you're actually missing, what's going on the inside. And to be more specific, the lack of connection in life. Again, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety. It's connection. See, addiction starts in our lives when we can no longer bear being present. I just really want to drive this home. Addiction starts in your life when you can no longer bear being present in your own life. Here's the challenge. Most men grew up in a home where being present wasn't easy. See, we're supposed to grow up in a home where you feel nurtured and loved and cared for and believed in, right? Before you can even care for yourself. You're born into a family, your mom and dad, they cuddle you, they swaddle you, they wipe your butt. They take care of you. What's happening? You are bonding to them. You're actually bonding. You're creating this deep bond and this deep relationship with your caretakers. Now, here's a really important piece of childhood development that will help you is babies don't have the ability to regulate their own emotions. So you didn't have the ability to regulate your emotions on your own when you were young. You did what's called co-regulating. Follow me here. You're co-regulating. So you're regulating by being attached to a regulated adult. That's why when a baby's crying, a mom, if she's breastfeeding, her breasts will start expressing milk. Well, why? You go, why did God do that? Well, he wanted a child, when it starts to cry, to be able to receive comfort from his mother, from his caretaker. The milk isn't just for nutrients, it's also for comfort. And so God provided a woman a way to nurture, to bond, to regulate a child when it needed regulating. This is fascinating. So what was supposed to happen in your life is you were supposed to go from being dysregulated to really regulated by through bonding and connection, through relationship, through deep relationships. You are supposed to learn that you're safe, that you're seen, that you're known, that you belong, that you're cared for. But before you can even offer anything of value, that you are loved unconditionally. While you were peeing your bed at night and pooping your pants, your parents were happily, lovingly taking care of you. Okay, what's that do? That wires you. It wires your brain. It creates neural pathways in your brain in which you go, I am loved. I am safe. I am cared for. I belong. In a world where you are safe, where you are seen, where you are known, where you belong, guess what you don't have to do? You don't have to medicate that world. It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? See, the reason why you and I aren't getting drunk every day, aren't doing drugs every day, aren't watching porn all day long, isn't because those things aren't fun. In fact, often those things are very fun. There is tons of fun to be had in casual sex. There's lots of fun to be done in getting drunk. It's so fun to do things that don't always benefit your soul. Why don't we go do those things? Because at the end of the day, it breaks relationship. If I go get drunk and I go home, what did it hurt? My relationships. If I go get high and I go home, what's it hurt? It hurts my relationships. I cannot maintain healthy relationships, healthy, functioning, deep, connected relationships and be an abused substance. You can't do it. You can't go and have sexual relationships or relationships with pornography and have a deep, intimate relationship with your spouse. You can't do it. So, furthermore, you don't need to do those things if you are in a deeply connected relationship. When we talk about where did we get wired for addiction? For most of us, it went back to our childhood. See, what we forget is that we weren't the ones that wired ourselves. You're not the one that wired yourself. You're not. You're not the one that got to decide how you see yourself. This is one of the biggest aha moments for a lot of people. You didn't create the way that you think about you. You didn't. You didn't get to choose what kind of home you grew up in. You didn't get to choose your family. You didn't get to choose your siblings. You didn't get to choose what school you went to. You didn't get to choose what color of skin you are. You didn't. You also didn't get to choose how your parents talked to you, what they fed you, how they took care of you. You didn't. You were the recipient of all those things. Therefore, you were wired. The gift and inheritance that your parents gave you is a wiring. They gave you an ecosystem in which wired you. They set you up for either success or failure. Okay. If you were raised in a home where your mom and dad weren't present for your emotions, well, you didn't grow up. You weren't born with the ability to manage your own emotions. That was supposed to be wired into you. You weren't born with the ability to create a healthy framework on life that was supposed to be built for you and handed to you and nurtured with you. So you bonded to whatever your environment was. Remember, addiction starts in our life when we can no longer bear being present. That's how we started this conversation. So I just want to create a timeline and a time frame for you about your life. Most people, they can trace the origins of addiction back to their childhood. Why? Why is everyone like, do I have to go back and talk about my childhood? You don't necessarily have to go back and talk to your childhood, but somehow if you grew up in a home where you didn't bond, where you weren't unconditionally loved, where you couldn't co-regulate in a healthy way, then you are wired to chaos. Your inner world is wired for chaos. You have all these triggers and all these belief systems that aren't true today, but they were true back then. That's trauma. Trauma is I'm living out a reality today that came from my past. It's very real today because I still have those same fears, although it's not, I may not even be living in the same conditions, if that makes sense. So my dad yelled at me, screamed at me, talked rude to me. My dad could have died. But if you grew up like that, then you probably have trauma around uh, adult authority, male authority. And so therefore you have all these presets like, man, I have to protect myself against authority figures. And it's like, well, it has nothing to actually do with the authority figures in your life today. It has to do with how the most dominant authority figure in your life wired you. This is really important because what you misdiagnose, you mistreat every time. So if we don't actually diagnose, how did you get to where you're at? Then you will mistreat it. You'll try to just put all these Band-Aids on a bullet hole instead of going like, wait, hold on a sec. I have rewiring to do. It's why you can't just willpower your way out of addiction. You have rewiring to do. It's not a will problem. It's not a will problem. It's a wiring problem. It's not a will problem. It's a wiring problem. So we go back to, okay, we are all born for connection. In fact, scientists now say that smoking 11 cigarettes is less damaging than being psychologically isolated, than being alone. Smoking 11 cigarettes a day is less damaging than being isolated and alone. That's wild. If you think about it, being alone and isolated is the actual worst thing that you can have happen to you on the planet. If you take a human being, the most heinous human being on the planet, the worst of the worst of the worst felons, when they get in prison, where do they put the worst people? Solitary confinement, in the hole. Why is that such incredible punishment? They don't go in the hole and be like, oh, finally I'm alone. I got peace. I have quiet. I have everything that I need. I'm all alone. No. Even the worst people on the planet, the worst punishment for them is to be all alone, isolated, left to themselves, untouched. No interaction, no communication. That is the ultimate punishment. See, there's two types of connection that we all need. We need to have a really deep connection with at least one other person in our life, someone that really knows us, someone that sees us, someone that understands us. Then the other connection that we need is we need a tribe, right? Psychologists say there's two relationships that you really need, two types of connection. You need a deep connection with where somebody really knows you, sees you, loves you, believes in you. And you need a connection to a tribe. I am a Vallotton. I'm the son of Chris and Kathy Vallotton, but I belong to BraveCo, and I'm a pastor at Bethel, and these are my people. I have a community of people that are mine. We were designed to live like that. In order to live a healthy whole life, I need those two places to belong. I belong to Chris and Kathy. I have a deep relationship with them. Of course, I have a deep relationship with my wife, deeper than even my parents at this point. I have a very deep relationship with some guy friends of mine, really deep relationship with them. Those bring life and nurture and help and health and healing into my life, strength. They bring conflict that's healthy. They sharpen me. And I have this belonging to this greater purpose. My purpose can be found in BraveCo. It could be found in this group. It could be found in this tribe. It gives me something to belong to. So, but here's the challenge. I really want to help break down for us what it looks like to build healthy connections. Because if broken connection is how we get here, to substance abuse, to sexual abuse, to a broken life of addiction, then we really have to know how to build deep connections. And why I think that this is so important is because most people don't know how to build healthy connections. We just say like, oh, you need to be really vulnerable. And it's like, yes, but vulnerability in and of itself isn't connection. It's just vulnerability. So I want to talk through how to build healthy connection. There's 4 parts to building deep connection. And I wish I came up with these on my own, but I didn't. Brené Brown is actually the author of these. And I love them a ton. I don't agree with everything that she says, but I love these 4 points to deep connection, to building deep connection. Now, connection is built in these 4 ways. It's courage, compassion, authenticity, and vulnerability. These 4 key components to connection, to deep connection, is courage, compassion, authenticity, and vulnerability. Now, Brené says that in all of her research, what she's found is the only difference between people who have a strong sense of love and belonging and those who don't is that the people who have it believe they are worthy of love and belonging. Okay, I'm going to say that again. In order to have connection, you have to believe that you're worthy of connection, right? You won't have deep connection as an adult if you don't believe that you're worthy of connection, because you'll constantly sabotage any connection that you do have. You won't love someone any more than you feel like you're worthy of love, because ultimately you'll be afraid, because you believe that you're not worthy of love, you'll sabotage that relationship so that they won't reject you. Does that make sense? So the challenge is that if you weren't told that you're worthy of love, if you weren't told that you're lovable, right? That wasn't supposed to be created by you. That was supposed to be sown into you. Then you have this life in which you don't believe that you're worthy of love. And therefore, it's just self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't feel like I'm worthy to be loved. I'm afraid of rejection. So I do all these things that I reject people. I keep people away. I'm not super vulnerable. I'm not super open. And eventually I sabotage the relationships that I do have, which pushes me deeper into the cycle of addiction. Okay. Here's the thing. How do I get to a place of where I feel worthy of love? So Brené Brown says the difference between people who have a strong sense of love and belonging and those who don't is that people who have it believe they are worthy of love and belonging. Follow me with this last part. They believe that their story is what makes them beautiful. The good, the bad, the ugly. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy of love because I've lived a perfect life. I'm worthy of love because of how I was created, because I was created in God's image. I'm worthy of love, not because I've done everything perfect, but because my story is beautiful. I don't have to hide my past. Okay. That's a massive point to this whole conversation. So let me just talk through these 4 pillars. The first one, courage. Courage is the ability to share your story with your own heart, being willing to bear your imperfections. So Brené Brown says, courage, the first piece in connection. Courage is the ability to share your story with your whole heart, being willing to bear your imperfections. Okay. You cannot actually feel like you belong. You won't actually receive other people's love until you are willing to bear your imperfections. This is so powerful. Courage, right? It takes courage. Courage is the ability to share your story with your whole heart, being willing to bear your imperfections. So this is why it's so important that you come to God as you are. Not that you try to be perfect, not that you don't come to God all cleaned up. When you came to Christ, he cleaned you up. He was the perfect one that took your imperfection and made you perfect. You didn't get all cleaned up. I didn't have my daughter Edie and she came out of my wife and she was perfectly clean. We had to clean her. We unconditionally loved her, accepted her. She's actually, in fact, never cleaned herself on her own up to this point. We are still saying, as you are is enough. When you came to Christ, it was supposed to be the same way that you came to your parents, and you were supposed to learn the same message. I am worthy of love. Okay, now we have to do this. I want you to begin to take those places in your life where you go, man, I want to hide this. Man, I don't want to share the full story. Man, I don't want to talk about this thing. What that's doing is keeping you in a perpetual cycle of brokenness. If you have something in your life that your wife doesn't know about, there's no way that you're actually going to feel loved, cared for, nurtured by her until you share that. More importantly, the biggest piece is you don't love you. Because you say, if people really knew this about me, if people really knew what was going on in my life, they wouldn't love me. They would reject me. So until you empty your life out of the secrets and you're willing to share your whole heart, being willing to bear your imperfections, the last piece is so beautiful. I have to be willing to bear my imperfections. We take the deepest, darkest places of our life and open those up so that we can receive love that is actually real. All right. Step 2, authenticity. This is a 4-step process to building connection. Authenticity makes way for true intimacy and emotional connections with others. It's the ability to embrace who you are while letting go of who you think you should be. Okay. You can't really connect with somebody if you're not authentic. Right? We have to have courage, tell our story with our whole heart. But then authenticity is, don't love me for who I might become. Love me for who I am today. But I have to do that first, right? I have to first do this myself. Authenticity is letting go of who I think that I should be, and embracing who I am today. I've had to do this my whole entire life. I have a dad that's really successful. I preach in a church that has incredible preachers and speakers. I battled it so much when I was young. Like I'm up here preaching and it's not as good as my dad. It's not as good as Bill. It's not as good as Danny. Everyone's comparing me to that. And I wanted to be like, man, I should be better than this. I should, instead of going like, this is really where I'm at. This is where I'm at. It's okay to be where you're at. I can have a goal to grow, but this is where I'm at today. When I married my wife, actually before I married Lauren, when we were dating, I told her something. I said, hey, listen, don't marry me because you think I'm going to be a pastor, because you think I'm going to be an author, because you think I'm going to be successful like my dad. Don't do that. Marry me for who I am today. This is who I know that I am right here, right now. If you don't love this guy, don't marry me for some far off picture of what you think I might be. Don't. Right? That's the Uncle Rico syndrome is, oh man, when I was in high school, I could throw a football a quarter mile. It's like, no, no, just love you for who you are today. Let me give you, compassion. Step 3. Compassion looks like being kind to yourself and then to others because you cannot genuinely give away what you don't actually possess. It's impossible to build really deeply connected relationships without compassion. What does it do? Compassion unlocks this ability for you to sit in somebody else's shoes and really understand them. Look at how many times in the Bible Jesus was going to walk past somebody and not heal them, but it said out of compassion, he met the person where they're at in their need. Our compassion is Velcro, right? Compassion gives us the ability for someone else to stick to us. Oh man, could you imagine not having compassion for your little kids, not having compassion for your wife, not having compassion for yourself, right? Compassion, often people learn how to not have compassion for others. Compassion is a natural thing. If you've ever watched a baby, man, my little son who's 3, he has so much compassion for other babies that are hurt, for other babies that need help. Like he'll go hug them, love on them, care for them. Yeah, he's not always kind, but compassion is something that he was born with. It was something that he naturally possessed. And of course, we teach him to be kind, all those things. But to hate, no one, the Bible says no one ever hate his own self, but loved and nurtured it. Our natural response is to love and nurture. If you weren't treated kindly, if you weren't treated with compassion, you were taught that you are not worthy of love and compassion. Okay, you may have to go back and love on yourself. You may have to go, I am worthy of love and compassion. Where was I taught that I wasn't worthy of love and compassion? Because God's not doing that to you. That's not Jesus's message to you. That wasn't his example. That was an example that you grew up with. So actually stopping and going, I am worthy of compassion. My story is worthy of compassion. I don't have to feel sorry for myself, which to feel sorry for myself would be to say that I'm a victim and leave myself there. But I certainly can feel compassion for that young boy who wasn't loved and cared for and nurtured. And I could understand how hard that was for him. And I can say, man, you are worthy of love. You're worthy to be heard. You're worthy to have a voice. You're worthy. You should be angry. And that's okay, right? Compassion. The last one, vulnerability. Vulnerability is the birthplace of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, and creativity. Vulnerability is, right? We often mistake transparency for vulnerability. Transparency says, you can see me, but you can't actually touch me. You can see me, but you can't touch me. People often say that they are vulnerable, but then when you go to actually touch them, when you go to actually speak into their life, when you go to the Bible says, "Blessed are the wounds of a friend; deceitful are the kisses of an enemy." When people vulnerability isn't show me. Vulnerability is you have permission to change my mind. Think about the deepest level of vulnerability. It's the covenant that I've made with God and the covenant that I've made with my wife. I don't just show my wife. My wife doesn't just show me where she's at. She doesn't just show me even her body and sexuality. No, I have the ability to wound her, to leave her, to abandon her, because I get to have my wife's full attention. I get to have her fully present. I get to have her full vulnerability. But that is the deepest place of connection. It's the birthplace of love, belonging, creativity, joy, is you have permission to change my mind. You have permission to wound me. Think about it like this, like my closest, deepest relationships, I am unguarded. I'm not just transparent with this bulletproof glass. You can see me, guys, but you can't speak into me. You can see me, but you can't sharpen me. You could see me, but you can't wound me. No. If I'm going to really embrace deep connection, the kind of connection that crushes addiction in my life, I have to become fully vulnerable, not just transparent, fully vulnerable. It's in those relationships that I feel the most seen, the most known, the most cared for, the most believed in, the most loved. It's that vulnerability. So when we think about it, guys, listen, what absolutely crushes addiction? The starting point that I am worthy of love. So I need to live like it. I need to share my story, being willing to bear my imperfections. The people in my life need to know my story, the ins, the outs. I don't have anything to hide. I need to accept where I'm at today, not shame myself. I get to accept where I'm at. I get to accept my imperfections, not make excuses for them, not continue to live in sin, but I get to actually accept this is where I'm at today. And I have compassion for myself, right? I'm going to come and first have compassion for me so I can give that away to the environment around me. And then I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to live a vulnerable life. Guys, if you begin to live your life from this, because you can use willpower to stop pornography. You can use willpower to quit smoking. You can use willpower to quit drinking. But if you don't live a deeply connected life, you will have to medicate for the pain of disconnection. Because you remember, addiction starts in our life when we can no longer bear being present. What do we all want? We all want a life in which we want to be present. What's a life that you can be present in? A life where you're safe, where you're seen, where you're known, where you're believed in, where you're loved in, where you're cherished, where you're nourished, where you have friends that will jump in the foxhole when you're in a big fight and you know that you have people there with you. You're not alone. When you're in tough situations and you know that you're not alone, that's a life that you can be present in. That's a life that you can be fully open for. So guys, this is the opening lesson session in our addictions series. And I want you to just take as much time as you need to go through these different phases and go, how am I doing in this area? And to begin to sharpen those. You can go watch Brene Brown's TED Talk on, I think it's called The Power of Vulnerability or Power of Authenticity. I can't remember. That may help you. But this really is the foundation. This is the foundation for crushing addiction in your life completely, is building a deeply connected life. Guys, I'm thankful for you. This week, pay attention to what God's doing in this area of your life and really press into deep connection. I love you all. Have an incredible week. Stay brave.
Hey, BraveCo man. Hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.